Well, European youth policy influences youth work in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and currently organization where I work also influences a lot because it's the matter of like wider picture. It's the matter of what's going on around us, and in this sense, it has the influence because it brings ideas, alternatives, points of view, and so on. Generally speaking, on the policy level, European youth policy has nothing to do with Bosnia, unfortunately, because we are not part of EU. But it does influence our trendings. It does influence how we can treat things. It also brings a lot of learning and new ideas in the field in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina doesn't have a national youth policy, so therefore we don't have a proper influence as a paper and as a policy document to our work. But not having youth policy on the state level, it's also a matter of how we do youth work. Since the complexity of the country, we do have youth policies in different areas on the different levels of governance. And unfortunately, in Bosnia, we are not happy how these documents are being implemented, especially because we think it can be more efficient, more youth-friendly, and it can include more young people into development of the documents. And therefore, I am in the Institute for Youth Development KULT, where we actually introduce the youth participation into development of youth policy documents in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and trying to bridge what's going on in Europe, what is really happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and bridging these two things with the needs of young people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So to make it short, yes, European youth policy level influences our work. Yes, it has to do a lot with what's going on in youth clubs, youth centers around Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it doesn't have direct responsibility and it doesn't have direct connection with how we are doing things. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, there is a complex political system, therefore there is a complex policy system in the youth work field that for youth workers is quite challenging, but still there is a lot of things to think through, to grow out, to learn for us.
I think it's influences a lot because at least my place in Finland commonly, I think the youth work is quite global in the way that there's a lot of Erasmus projects. Like we have almost all the time we have European voluntary servicing people in our youth center, and we are also sending youngsters to another countries to another projects. So I think it can affect a lot. And of course, as a youth workers, our responsibility or one of our work tasks is to tell the youngsters the possibilities of life and many times studying projects and or so on. They have something to do with the policies, like Erasmus is good example, but also during the corona pandemic about going to exchange studies or traveling. It hasn't been so easy last year, but in normal I think there's many kind of areas or subjects of life what has something to do. Also it can be something about work or working commonly. The policies can be different kind of in different countries and so on. So I think it has a lot of to do. And it's really interesting, but the hardest point is to stay a catch about them. You need to really follow the news and the discussions in many different levels as a youth worker, so you can also tell them more to young persons by themselves.
Okay. Well, for my work working with LGBTQ plus people, the legislation that exists within the European and youth policies are actually very much important in the way that we can cooperate with other organizations, with other individuals, other youth workers, and be able to execute our activities and be able to follow the strategies and the policies that they are around youth work. We are specifically focused in what is connected with inclusion and diversity aspect, and how LGBT young people can be part of the conversation and can have actually their rights within this policy and their right to go for mobility opportunities and go in other projects. I'm working a lot within Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps, and the youth work that I'm doing is not aimed to, okay, let's do something and that's it, but it's aiming on following these regulations and the guidelines. I'm not that familiar with like the exact information and the exact knowledge, but we are working around this objective, and we have a strategy on what type of activities, what type of events we can organize and support our young people to organize themselves, with the biggest aim to promote that all these opportunities, Erasmus Plus, European Solidarity Corps, can be a great tool for social inclusion and for social change to happen. Like the work that I do is mainly, I'm an activist using non-formal education, non-formal learning as a tool for activism, which is not something that I've seen many people doing. So my form of creating and supporting social change to take place is using non-formal learning to motivate and empower also young people. And that's very, very important to me and to the youth work that I'm doing, because it's important to offer opportunities for our LGBTQ plus people where they can find themselves comfortable, where they can feel that, hey, this is what I like and this is what I like, and there is no right or wrong way to do. There is no right or wrong way to do social change. There are ways that they're working more and there are ways that they're working less, and it's all about finding my way that works for me and the people that I can work with and challenge myself with. So it's not that I receive challenges, but it's that I challenge myself within these opportunities, and then starting from the change from an individual perspective, and then group and community, and then how does this reflect in a European level? How does this reflect within the different countries? Because I've been doing youth work already in many different countries, and it's different for me to do youth work in the Netherlands, in Latvia, in Greece, Spain, Italy, Slovenia. I'm one of the lucky ones that have tested youth work in different countries, and it amazed me that while there is a framework, it's not the same in every country. And then youth work means different in the Netherlands than what it means in Latvia. And Netherlands has, let's say, from my experience, there is a better formal education system, so there is not so much information or need for the non-formal learning, whereas in Greece or Latvia or countries more like in the east-south part, there is a lot of need for these youngsters to travel abroad. So what happens in the European level it very much connects to what happens at the national level and then in the local level, and how it reaches me as a youth worker within my work.
My appearance of having a relationship with European youth policy and youth work linked to Council of Europe mostly. Several years ago, I participated in some activities for trainers. I'm a trainer also, a trainer of non-formal education and human rights education. So I participated in long-term training courses for trainers from all Europe, from Russia, on these topics, and with team of our region, we participated in projects that The title of the project is Shaping Youth Policy. It's a common project of Council of Europe and European Commission, a partnership between these structures. So we participated years ago, 2 or 3 years ago in this project, and developing our local project about inclusion in youth sphere, in youth policy and youth work. This experience have a lot of influences for me as a person, as a youth worker, and as a youth policy making person. For example, we have here in Novosibirsk region, we have a youth forum. It's a big educational activity, not as a place where young people come to discuss something, but forum is an activity educational activity. So each year the topic of this big forum comes from my experience of working with Council of Europe, for example, hate speech, culture of the peace, youth participation, intercultural dialogue and learning. And each year we work with one of this issue with young people, and during this forum they educated by trainers and also trainers from youth department, a pool of trainers of Council of Europe and National Youth Council of Russia, and they educated and they developed their own initiatives. That after forum they make these initiatives. So about something about hate speech, about culture of the peace, I said minutes ago. So there is a lot of links, and this what I said now about projects, about activities, it comes basically from the European agenda of youth policy and youth work.
Okay, so European and national, mostly youth policy influences my work, not directly in terms of the interaction with young people, but mostly in terms of project management, writing projects and so on. So we need to understand the priorities that the European think that are priorities for the youth, and also evaluate them and connect those priorities with young people that we work with. Sometimes, for instance, with the young people that I work with, inclusion is a major priority for us. So in order to not have discrimination, that it happens a lot here, we need to focus on that priority. But other priorities are not adequate to our needs, okay? So we have like a base for our work, but our work does not just stay on those priorities or those policies, because policies are important because they enable us to work better and also to young people feel that their needs are fulfilled, okay? But this is more a theory that should be the background of the thing that you do. It should be the thing that you do, okay? In case, of course, you feel like the priorities or the policies are not related to how you work, or they are not assessing the needs of your young people, maybe you should discuss this. For instance, in Portugal, we have a national policy and we have like national organism, like, I don't know how to call it, IPDJ. It's like a Portuguese Institute for Youth and Sports, and they have regional like representatives, and they support a lot of youth work. We have many interactions with the PDJ because of that, because they feel and they understand the Portuguese way of being or the problems that Portuguese youth have. So yes, we have the European policy, but we focus a lot on the Portuguese policy on that point.